Every ally is a potential threat. Every hero, a weapon waiting for misdirection. The line between savior and catastrophe is thinner than a spider's thread. That's why I build contingencies, not out of distrust, but inevitability. Power corrupts. Purpose fractures. Even the noblest can lose balance when tragedy finds them again. I've seen gods fall. I've watched men break. But this one clings to hope with webs made of guilt. And when that hope finally snaps, the fall will be catastrophic. File number 047, subject, Peter Benjamin Parker, alias Spider-Man. Origin, New York City, Earth designation unknown, classification, potential Omega-level threat. I became aware of the subject through multiversal anomaly cross-reports logged by Oracle. A rift opened over Gotham's East End, energy signature consistent with quantum lattice folding. The entity that emerged subdued a mugger mid-fall from the Monarch Theater rooftop using tensile organic webbing. The subject apologized to the mugger afterward. That combination, power and conscience, is what drew my attention. Spider-Man operates within a moral structure nearly identical to my own. He avoids lethal force, prioritizes civilian protection, and acts without institutional oversight. But beneath that restraint lies a volatile core, a deep-rooted trauma compounded by survivors' guilt, financial pressure, and social isolation. He is a man haunted by the belief that every tragedy around him is his fault. That belief drives his heroism. It also ensures his eventual collapse. Spider-Man possesses the strength to tear a man in half, the agility to evade hypersonic projectiles, and the intuition to predict attacks before they occur. He uses these gifts to protect a city that fears and misunderstands him. That misunderstanding will break him long before any enemy can. The moment he stops believing in his own code, the moment guilt turns to anger, the web becomes a weapon. And once that happens, there is no saving him. I cannot rely on chance. This file exists to ensure that if Spider-Man ever turns his power against others, against me, against his world, or against any universe, there will be a plan. A quiet, calculated, final measure. He's not my enemy. Not yet. But preparation isn't betrayal. It's survival. Peter Parker is, at his core, a paradox, a man cursed with both extraordinary power and extraordinary guilt. He hides his strength behind humor, his pain behind a mask. I understand that mechanism intimately. But unlike me, his mask isn't armor. It's an escape hatch, a fragile, desperate attempt to laugh in the face of a world that keeps taking everything from him. Every choice Spider-Man makes stems from a single event, the death of Benjamin Parker, his uncle and moral compass. It wasn't the murder itself that broke him. It was the belief that he caused it. He could have intervened. He didn't. From that moment, every life he saves is an act of penance. Every life lost, a reopening of that wound. That kind of guilt becomes addiction. He can't stop saving people, not because he wants to be a hero, but because he can't forgive himself for not saving one man. This creates a dangerous dependency, the illusion that self-sacrifice equals redemption. The world celebrates Spider-Man's bravery, but it's not bravery, it's compulsion. If given the choice between his own survival and another's, he will always choose death. That kind of predictability is exploitable. Parker's behavioral profile shows cycles of manic overcommitment, followed by depressive withdrawal. He oscillates between humor and self-loathing, the laughter masking exhaustion, the exhaustion feeding recklessness. He exhibits strong attachment tendencies. Once he forms an emotional bond, he internalizes responsibility for that person's safety. He has done this with multiple individuals: Mary Jane Watson, romantic partner, emotional anchor; Aunt May Parker, surviving maternal figure, symbol of forgiveness; Harry Osborn, friend turned adversary, catalyst for survivor's guilt; Gwen Stacy, loss that redefined his threshold for pain. Every attachment becomes a potential weakness. He protects, he obsesses, and eventually, he blames himself for whatever happens next. Spider-Man operates under a strict, self-imposed code. With great power comes great responsibility. To most, it's a mantra. To him, it's a sentence. Unlike Superman, who acts from compassion, or Wonder Woman, who acts from principle, Parker acts from obligation. Every act of heroism is debt repayment. This moral absolutism makes him noble and unstable, because the moment that belief fractures, he has nothing left to hold him. If someone close to him dies, again, and he believes it's because of his restraint, his morality will collapse. At that point, He'll weaponize his guilt. He'll rationalize vengeance as justice. He'll become everything he swore to fight. Spider-Man demonstrates high-level problem-solving skills consistent with gifted-level IQ. Scientific proficiency includes advanced understanding of biochemistry, mechanical engineering, and computer science. His thought process is non-linear, intuitive, adaptive, improvisational. He doesn't plan like I do. He reacts. That spontaneity makes him unpredictable in combat, but unreliable in crisis leadership. Emotionally, Parker is empathetic to a fault. He absorbs the pain of others, often to the detriment of his own stability. He masks this with quips, a defense mechanism rooted in insecurity. The humor isn't arrogance, it's anesthesia. When cornered, he becomes reckless, using humor as a distraction for both his enemies and himself. If that mechanism ever fails, if the mask slips and the jokes stop, it means he's crossed into full emotional detachment. At that point, he's operating purely on instinct and anger. That is when he becomes dangerous. After thorough analysis, I've identified 3 primary catalysts that could cause Parker to lose control. Personal loss, high probability. The death of a loved one, especially if perceived as preventable, would trigger emotional collapse and violent reprisal. In this state, he'd likely disregard civilian safety, attacking perceived threats indiscriminately. Identity exposure, medium probability. Should his dual life be compromised publicly, he'd experience total psychological dissonance. The guilt of endangering Aunt May or Mary Jane could lead to paranoia or withdrawal, possibly escalating into aggression toward perceived betrayers. Corruptive influence, low probability. Exposure to mind control, symbiote bonding, or emotional manipulation could amplify aggression while suppressing empathy. The Venom incident confirms this risk. Under external influence, Parker's morality erodes quickly, replaced by suppressed rage. Spider-Man's psychology mirrors that of early career vigilantes, myself included. The difference lies in our responses to trauma. I compartmentalized. He internalized. I built walls. He built webs. But both are prisons, one of silence, the other of guilt. And when the weight of that guilt becomes unbearable, Spider-Man won't simply break. He'll unravel. Spider-Man is not inherently dangerous, but his mind is unstable. He is a hero balanced on a knife's edge, sustained only by routine, guilt, and external validation. The day he loses one of those supports, he will spiral. And when that day comes, he'll be stronger, faster, and less restrained than any adversary I've ever faced. He'll move faster than thought, strike without hesitation, and rationalize every casualty as justice served. He won't become a monster. He'll become a martyr, and that's far more dangerous. When assessing potential threats, I begin with one question. What can they do that I can't? In Spider-Man's case, the answer is simple: almost everything. Peter Parker's mutation has enhanced his physiology far beyond standard human limitations. He possesses the proportional strength, agility, and reflexes of a spider. To most, that sounds metaphorical. In practice, it's something else entirely. Strength output has been measured via secondary multiversal records at levels capable of lifting between 15 and 25 tons, with momentary bursts exceeding 50 tons under adrenaline stress. A single strike could fracture reinforced concrete. An unrestrained blow could kill an unarmored opponent instantly. His agility borders on preternatural. Parker can dodge automatic weapons fire at close range, and land from multi-story falls without injury. He operates with constant kinetic fluidity. Every movement reactive, instinctive, and efficient, but it's not his muscles that make him dangerous. It's his spatial awareness. The so-called spider sense is a biological extrasensory perception triggered by environmental threat cues. It's not magic. It's an evolved survival mechanism, predictive, subconscious, and nearly instantaneous. It warns him milliseconds before an attack occurs, allowing reflexive evasion or counteraction. In testing scenarios hypothetical, even my most advanced stealth technology would not guarantee invisibility from him. He senses intent, not movement. That's what makes him unpredictable and nearly impossible to ambush. Only one method exists to bypass it: confusion. Overwhelming his sensory input, simultaneous attacks, unpredictable patterns, or emotional distraction can desynchronize the spider sense temporarily. That weakness is exploitable but requires precision timing. Spider-Man's fighting technique is unorthodox. He blends improvisation with instinctive counterplay, rarely repeating patterns. Unlike trained martial artists, he doesn't rely on formal structure. He adapts on the fly. His combat style combines acrobatic evasion, constant motion, unpredictability. Web-assisted mobility, anchoring points mid-fight to alter trajectory. Environmental use, pulling debris, disarming opponents, creating barriers. Deceptive tactics, taunting, humor, verbal misdirection. It's chaos with purpose, and it works. He disorients opponents, forcing them to fight his tempo. Against untrained or emotionally reactive adversaries, this is devastating. But there's a pattern beneath the chaos. Defensive prioritization. Spider-Man doesn't fight to kill. He fights to control. Every strike is measured, enough to neutralize, not destroy. That restraint defines his strength. It's also his greatest vulnerability. Remove the moral filter, and every hit becomes lethal. The day he stops holding back. No human, super or otherwise, survives close contact. Spider-Man's reliance on technology varies depending on iteration. Primary universe data indicates self-engineered web shooters that deploy a polymer compound resembling synthetic silk. The tensile strength of this substance exceeds steel wire by a factor of 5, yet remains elastic. He uses it for rapid traversal, web swinging, object manipulation, and restraint, net construction for crowd control, impact absorption, precision capture, single target immobilization. The cartridges are chemical, not infinite. Each canister sustains approximately 20-30 tactical uses before depletion. Extended conflict depletes his web reserves quickly, especially under duress. Parker has also demonstrated competence with communication systems, compact sensors, and occasionally Stark-derived suits featuring enhanced durability and reconnaissance functions. However, his reliance on external technology is minimal. He trusts his instincts more than his tools, which makes him vulnerable to technological interference. Unlike members of the Justice League, Spider-Man's support structure is informal and inconsistent. He's often a solo operator. His allies include the Avengers, occasional collaboration, inconsistent trust, Daredevil, Black Cat, Deadpool, unreliable partnerships, Tony Stark, former mentor, possible influence in suit enhancements, H-I-E-L-D, intermittent resource exchange, unstable relationship. His dependence on personal morality means that organizational loyalty is fluid. He can't be manipulated through institutional chains, only through personal ones. This isolation makes him dangerous, but it also means that neutralizing or misleading him can be achieved without political escalation. Spider-Man's vulnerabilities are few, but they exist. He is not invulnerable. He bleeds. He tires. Sensory overload. Multiple stimuli at once. Light, sound, motion can cause his spider sense to misfire, creating short-term confusion. Web dependency. Once his web fluid is depleted or chemically neutralized, his combat versatility diminishes. He becomes reliant on hand-to-hand combat, still formidable, but less mobile. Psychological fragility. Emotional provocation can override his logic. Threats to loved ones, moral dilemmas, or betrayal can destabilize him mid-fight. Environmental control. Cold weather and low humidity conditions interfere with his web elasticity. Controlled environments, such as cryo chambers or vacuum-sealed areas, can neutralize his mobility advantage. I ran 7 hypothetical engagement models against Spider-Man. Results were consistent. Direct confrontation results in a 94% probability of failure under normal conditions. Even with prep time, the spider sense grants him an almost precognitive advantage. However, models incorporating environmental manipulation and psychological distraction yield more favorable outcomes. Simulation 03B, urban pursuit, objective, containment, not elimination. Deploy sonic emitters disguised as streetlights across a 2 square mile radius. Initiate high-frequency disorientation pulse at 4 kHz, 132. Simultaneously release synthetic pheromones replicating Oscorp experimental fear toxins. Spider sense overload occurs within 0.8 seconds. Web deployment accuracy drops by 73%. Net result, subject subdued via nanite sedative darts within 90 seconds. Simulation 05A, direct ambush, controlled space, objective neutralization. Engage within Gotham containment facility equipped with adaptive LED panels to distort perception. Subject's spider sense detects hostility, but cannot identify source due to holographic interference. Autonomously controlled drones deploy electric filament webs, current tuned to disrupt muscle control without cardiac arrest. Duration of engagement, 48 seconds before immobilization. Conclusion, direct engagement is inefficient. Environmental control is essential. Spider-Man is a Tier 1 close-quarters threat capable of defeating nearly any meta-human opponent given environmental advantage. His unpredictability, speed, and sensory advantage make him functionally unstoppable in conventional combat. Victory against him requires asymmetry, forcing him into environments he can't predict, choices he can't morally accept, and scenarios that break his rhythm. He fights best when he believes in himself. So the strategy must begin by ensuring he doesn't. Contingency protocol objective: neutralize the subject with minimal collateral damage. Priority order: civilians, containment, extraction, termination, last resort. Rules of engagement are immutable. I do not gamble. This is not improvisation. This is not a plan written for theater. This is a lattice of redundancies designed to end one man's reign of unintended violence without becoming the monster I oppose. Spider-Man is lethal at close range. He is fastest when reacting. Direct force fails. Therefore, I will never meet him on his terms. I will shape the battlefield. I will weaponize his conscience. I will deny his senses. I will force a choice that destroys his momentum. This protocol unfolds in 5 phases: preparation, isolation, containment, neutralization, extraction, aftercare. Each phase contains at least 3 independent fail-safes. Phase 1, preparation, denial, and mapping. Precondition: 72 to 96 hours of covert observation within the target zone. I will not rely on chance sightings. I will build a map of his patterns, where he sleeps, who he protects, when he runs, what he says when he is tired, data sources, satellite telemetry, traffic cameras, cellular metadata, social media triangulation, local police logs. Oracle will correlate in real time. Silhouette signatures will be profiled and cached. Logistics: 3 forward operating vantage points within a 5-kilometer radius. Each point conceals a modular systems node. Nodes will be network isolated and operate on non-standard frequencies. Power via microfusion cells. No civilian infrastructure compromised. Supply: deploy Wayne Tech microdrones, type Rook, for real-time electromagnetics and olfactory seeding. Rook units are stealth. They mask sound below 12 dB. They record and relay. They never engage. Contingency inventory staged. Web neutralizing aerosol canisters. Bioinert polymer enzyme. Non-lethal. Degrades adhesive bonds in synthetic and organic silk. Shelf stable. Dispersed by micropellet launchers. Holographic array projectors. High frame adaptive to create volumetric decoys. Low-frequency sonic modulators, capable of short burst disruption to spider sense via sensory saturation. Tuned in narrow bands to avoid permanent damage. Nanite sedative delivery via non-penetrative aerosol and micro-dart options. Sedative profile, reversible within controlled conditions. Cardiac safe. Electromagnetic netting deployers, high tension. Insulated, capable of immobilizing appendage motion without inducing electrocution. Cryolock chambers, environmental shells that can instantly alter humidity and temperature to reduce web elasticity. Psychological material, compiled dossiers on loved ones. Moral triggers, visual media timed for deployment. All materials are pre-tested under kinetic loads exceeding expected maximums. All protocols include medical reversal and legal containment steps. I will not create a crime wave in Gotham to catch one man. Phase 2, isolation, remove support and control perimeter. Goal: remove variables, friends, civilians, and unplanned witnesses without informing the subject. Step A, soft extraction of civilians. Oracle will initiate false positive city alerts routed through verified civic channels. Temporarily divert crowds with fabricated, low-impact safety advisories. Gas line leak simulation. Water main repair. Evacuations are targeted. Zones reduced to specific blocks around the planned engagement site. Step B, friend containment. Identify immediate human anchors. Aunt May, Mary Jane analogs. Use non-forceful extraction, medical check invites, urgent caregiving calls routed through trusted third parties. Benign relocations under the guise of emergency assistance. No deception that risks psychological harm. If the subject learns his anchors were endangered by my actions, it will escalate the crisis. Step C, technical isolation. Disable civilian comms on a microgrid within a 1 Swickler radius, not a citywide blackout. Limited, reversible suppression to deny external interference and prevent live broadcasts. Signal interruptions mimic weather anomalies to reduce suspicion. Fail-safes. If civilian extraction fails, cancel the mission. I will not fight him with innocence in play. Phase 3, containment, sensory degradation, and moral leverage. Principle: make him lose his advantage, his spider sense and his moral certainty. Tactic 1, sensory saturation. Deploy a ring of low-frequency sonic modulators hidden in street lamps and HVAC intakes. These units emit staggered, phase-shifted pulses designed to flood the threat detection pathways he relies on. The pulses are short, variable, and calibrated to produce transient misdirection without long-term neural injury. Simultaneously, release neutralizing aerosol in segmented puffs. The polymer enzyme is non-toxic. It reduces tensile strength and adhesion in webbing. It does not dissolve tissue. It makes his primary mobility tool unreliable for 90-180 seconds, enough for containment. Tactic 2, holographic occlusion. Activate adaptive projectors to generate a volumetric mirage of multiple simultaneous threats. Visual entropy is introduced, dozens of indistinguishable movement vectors. His spider sense will flag intent across a wide space. He will be forced to slow his responses to prevent hitting allies. Tactic 3, moral trigger deployment. Prepare targeted media, visuals of collateral damage, falsified casualty reports, staged audio of injured friends, only as a controlled bluff. The goal is not to lie. It is to force him to choose between an immediate, emotional, morally driven action and analysis. I will use this leverage sparingly. Ethics are mandatory. The risk calculus. A moment of moral paralysis is preferable to sustained rampage. Fail-safes. Oracle continuously monitors his physiological markers via remote imaging. If any deployment risks permanent harm, termination of active modules occurs immediately. Phase 4. Neutralization. Non-lethal immobilization framework. Objective. Immobilize without fatality. If containment cannot be achieved, prioritize incapacitation. Primary method, layered immobilization through simultaneous application of electromagnetic netting, or polymer web neutralizer, and targeted nanite sedative. Step 1, net deployment. Autonomous deployers release insulated, high-tension nets in an X pattern. The nets are conductive only in controlled bands. They are designed to constrict limb movement, not the thorax. They anchor to pre-rigged building facades. The net web includes micro shear points aligned to release under specific force thresholds to prevent asphyxiation. Step 2, nanite sedation. Upon basic immobilization, micro dart dispensers fire reversible sedative micro pellets. Pellets are subcutaneous, rapid onset, high precision. Dosage calibrated against observed mass and metabolic markers. Sedative profile, deep but reversible. Sedation is maintained until subject is stabilized in a controlled environment. Step 3, web neutralization. Aerosol fields neutralize remaining webbing bonds. Any attempt to create new web anchors is met with immediate polymer degradation. Alternate path. If close quarters engagement is unavoidable, use electromagnetic pulse bursts to temporarily overload motor function in the extremities for 6 to 12 seconds, enough to create opening for netting. Pulses are narrowly targeted to avoid CNS impact. Fail-safes. If the sedative fails to induce unconsciousness within 45 seconds, execute extraction with cryolock fallback. Cryolock rapidly lowers humidity by 18% and temperature by 8 degrees C within the containment shell, reducing elasticity and making mobility hazardous without causing hypothermic injury. This buys time for recalibration. Phase 5, extraction and aftercare. Immediate objective, move the subject to neutral environment for debrief and medical stabilization. Secondary objective, secure long-term containment options if necessary. Primary extraction route, subterranean transit via armored Wayne-Tech carrier. Route is pre-cleared and masked with environmental signatures to mimic standard municipal service vehicles. Medical, a Wayne Farm medic team will administer reversal agents and conduct a full neurophysiological assessment. If long-term psychological harm is present, psychiatric containment with consent mechanisms is preferred. Forced institutionalization is last resort. Containment options, reversible neural dampeners for temporary use, sensory recalibration therapy. If threat level remains chronic and imminent, I will prepare a sealed containment module optimized for short-term neutralization and long-term observation. This is not execution. Execute only on explicit, unavoidable data that indicates irrevocable threat. Psychological countermeasures, a plan without heart is a trap. I will not break him psychologically unless he breaks others first. If he is captured while conscious, engage with de-escalation. I will speak last. Words have power. I will not use them to humiliate. If he resists and declares war, then all failsafes convert to escalation mode. Arkham-level transfer protocols, multilateral custody with calibrated denial of lethal options, redundancies and what-ifs. What if Oracle is compromised? Nightwing on standby to assume network tasks. If Nightwing compromised, deploy Bat family fallback nodes. Red Hood for field redundancies. Oracle's mirrored backups under my control. What if he is bonded to an external symbiote or mind-altering agent? Introduce counteragent neutralizers prioritized over sedation. If chemical interference are present, apply chelation and controlled immunomodulation. What if I fall in the attempt? Protocol Gamma. Automatic legal disclosure to relevant interstellar authorities and immediate remote lock of all Wayne Tech assets tied to operation. Empires shouldn't hinge on one man. Hypothetical execution. The trigger is simple and irreducible. Confirmation of homicidal intent, plus imminent mass casualty trajectory. Oracle pings, multiple heat signatures converging on Midtown. Visual feed, a rooftop collapse in progress. Civilians in the fall corridor. Time to act, under 90 seconds. Phase 1 begins before he sees me. The microgrid goes dark in a mapped 2-kilometer radius. Streetlights switch to my pulse frequency. Rook units disperse aerosol micropellets into the expected web swing corridors. They register and report web output signatures, dropping by 62% within 10 seconds. He adapts, he always adapts, but adaptation requires accurate anchors. Those anchors are failing. Phase 2, sensory saturation. Hidden modulators begin staggered emission. The first pulse is a whisper. The second is a series of phase-shifted bursts, timed to desynchronize his predictive loop. His spider sense flares across the whole sky feed. Oracle's overlay shows widened intent vectors. He slows, not because he chooses to, but because his perceptual system demands analysis. I deploy holographic occlusion. 10 projectors create layered silhouettes. 24 indistinguishable friendlies and hostiles move in overlapping trajectories. His visual cortex is forced to resolve ambiguity. He compensates with increased reliance on tactile and proprioceptive feedback. He reaches for web anchors that dissolve as his fingers close around them. Polymer enzyme does its work. Silk fails to bite into masonry. For a trained fighter, that would be catastrophic. For him, it introduces the possibility of casualties and guilt. At T+18 seconds, net deployers fire. They unfurl in an X pattern between two pre-rigged facades. The nets find purchase on rebound anchors and snap taut. He collides with the first net, momentum arrested by engineered give. He does not fall unconscious. He fights. He always fights. He claws at the mesh, muscle memory seeking purchase. Microdart dispensers, hidden in downstream scaffolding, fire synchronized pellets into targeted musculature. Sedative onset, 18 seconds. Heart rate downtrends, fine motor control degrades. He looks for Aunt May. He looks for Mary Jane. He looks for someone to blame. That search is audible in his breathing. I do not speak. I wait. When a fragment of the holographic feed shows a staged silhouette of a trapped civilian, staged but plausible, he yells. The yell is the fulcrum. He makes a choice. He lunges. The cry is real enough to pull him past the sedation threshold. He reaches for the net anchor with two hands. The electromagnetic filament fires a narrow band current through insulating coils timed to disrupt extremity motor units for 6 seconds. His fingers curl. He cannot form the web. The sedative finishes its work. He collapses into my containment shell like a man laid down by exhaustion. I watch his chest rise until the rate stabilizes. The nanites synchronize with Wayne Farm telemetry. Reversal agent cued but withheld. Oracle confirms no further threats. Civilians are secure. The nets are retracted into modules that leave no permanent scarring on masonry. No lives taken. He wakes hours later in the carrier. He's lucid but furious. He asks why. I answer in fact. I do not comfort. I do not chastise. He catalog. He blames himself. I do not let him drown in that stream. I give him options: therapy, containment until recalibration, or monitored autonomy with strict fail-safes. He chooses autonomy. He refuses surveillance. He always refuses. I mark the choice and increase my observational cadence. If he had died in that collapse, if the worst had arrived before my nets could hold, the operation would have failed, and I would have carried the weight of it. The contingency is not a confession of intent to kill. It is a calculation to avoid killing by any means available. That is how I justify the methods. That is how I remain what I am. Final log entry preparation is ugly. Preparation isolates you from mercy and from myth. I keep this file not to damn him, but to spare us both from the irretrievable. If Spider-Man falls, it will not be because I failed to try. It will be because he chose to refuse my help, or because circumstance made all options obsolete. Either failure will mark me. I catalog this contingency not as victory, but as an obligation. I will update it. I will test it. I will hope it never needs activation. Hope is not strategy. But without it, strategy becomes tyranny. Preparation isn't paranoia. It is survival.